We are back with our fantasy team discussion preview for 2024. We're on to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, who made the playoffs, led by Joe Flacco last year. They're an interesting team to talk about for sure. A lot of guys to have discussions on, I think. And we're going to jump right into it. Just a quick PSA. This is recorded on July 16th. So we're still, I think rookies are coming into training camp this week, but I think all training camps are going to be starting up next week. So if some major news happens and we don't mention it, that's why. This is half PPR. All the stats and rankings you're going to see is based on half PPR. And we're starting off with Deshaun Watson, who is getting close to his age 29 season. Still the quarterback for the Browns because they paid him a shit ton of money, and that he's going to be there the next couple of years most likely. He's falling every year. He's falling. He's going in round 11 now as QB 21. Man, that's kind of crazy. You see his numbers. Yeah, you see his numbers there. I put 2021. That's supposed to be 2020 because he didn't play in 2021. 2020, he averaged 23.5 points per game and was the QB 6. So he was awesome. He led the league in passing, runs the ball. And then his last 2 years, he's averaged exactly 15.1 points per game. But I will say this. If you do remove the game where he busted his shoulder and left, he literally played like one snap and busted his shoulder. He actually had like negative 0.8 points. If you take that game out, he actually averaged like over 20 points a game, which I think would surprise a lot of people. His first three games, 2 of the first 3, he had over 21 points. I think he was right around 20 points per game. So, interesting there. He does run the ball. I think, again, like people don't think of him as a runner, but in his career, he's averaged about, I believe, 30 yards rushing per game, 23.7 last year. Coming off a major shoulder injury, which is a concern. Can he even throw the ball? Dad, Deshaun Watson, you just don't even want to mess with it anymore, or are you going to take a shot as maybe your QB2 in round 11 or 12?
Yeah, I have to mess with it. Well,
Dynasty,
I got him on my Dynasty, and of course I got suckered in, and let's say he plays a full season and like he did last year through 6 games, I think everybody's going to probably shut up and say, yeah, okay, he looks so okay. Is he – I mean, my God, his last year in Houston, he threw 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns.
I know.
I mean, that's kind of hard to replicate, though. So,
and he rushed for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns.
I know. I mean, that's fine. Fantasy, big time fantasy material there. So, and what everybody's complaint is that he hasn't done it the same, and among the other things. So, yeah. What's his? Let me see. ADP
round 11. I mean, he's going as QB 21. So essentially, like almost everyone has their backup quarterback. So
yeah, I was going to say, why wouldn't you take him at QB 21?
Yeah, I generally agree. I was kind of in on him last year, as like, I want to get him in round 9. He was going like round 8 or 9, and then even more so this year. I don't necessarily want him to be my only quarterback. I'm definitely going to take, a rookie or something like that, or another backup, but. Again, like even how bad he was last year, because he can run the ball, he can give you a safe floor. Now, my only fear is he going to stop running the ball because he just busted his shoulder and he doesn't want to do that anymore, right? That's always a possibility. So, but can he get anywhere close to 2020? Maybe he can throw for 200 yards and 27 touchdowns or something. And if he's going to continue to run, again, average 23 rushing yards a game, like that's about 400 rushing yards in the season, which is good. And he'll give you some on the ground as well. But yeah, there's a concern with the shoulder, and he's just not right. So Nick Chubb, tough to really talk about right now. He's right down at round 10, but this is either going to fall if he's not ready, or it's going to skyrocket if he is ready. So I don't really know if we should even really talk too much about Nick Chubb, because it's like you're probably not going to get him here.
Yeah, let's just throw the 2 cents out there that Nick Chubb ain't going to be playing early September. It'd be
probably not.
Yeah, it'd be one of those minor miracles and stuff like that. He tore his knee up really bad, and then he had a second surgery. So, and then after Nick Chubb, though, there's 3 running backs there. And which one do you pick? I don't, It's crazy.
So let me ask you this. It gets announced that Nick Chubb, we're going to be hearing it soon. We already heard like Keaton Mitchell it got placed on the PUP for the Ravens. We're going to start hearing those names, which it's not a big deal now because they can take you off whenever. So it's a big deal if it happens in September or the end of training camp. So let's just say he does go on PUP. He's obviously not going to go in round 10. He's probably going to drop. Would you take him, even though he's on PUP, would you take him round 12, round 13, and just hope he's, you're getting Nick Chubb in round 13, like whether, he misses the first 6 games, but and he comes back and looks okay, or are you just going to be completely out on him?
I might take a chance on him.
Yeah.
I might take a chance on him later. Depends on how far I got to go. I think people...
Round 10? Would you take him in round 10?
No, I don't think round 10.
Yeah, I agree.
Round 10 is like a starter or something,
Yeah.
No, I mean, if I... What's a typical redraft team? How big? 18?
Oh, for starters?
No.
Or for the rounds? Yeah, I'd say anywhere from 16 to 18.
Yeah. But see, I don't think Nick Chubb's going to last that long just based upon his name.
Yeah, probably not.
But people are going to drop him, though. I think. And, if he's not playing in a couple of weeks, if he's playing in October, I mean, I hope to see him on the field,
Yeah, something to keep in mind. Most people do play with IR spots now, especially since COVID. So that is a reason why someone might still take him round 11, round 12, because they say, hey, I can just throw him on my IR and I don't need to cut him, until he's back. So, but my only concern, I don't want to invest a round 10 pick because you're right. Again, you start a quarterback, 2 running backs, let's say 3 wide receivers, a tight end. That's 7 players right there. A flex, that's 8, right? So that's like your first or second bench spot for just an average league.
Yeah, that's a little early. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's an older running back coming off not just a regular injury. This was an injury where I hope he can walk. I hope he keeps his leg. It's not I hope he can play football again. It was literally I hope they don't have to amputate his leg or something. It was that bad. So
yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, which sucks because he's always been one of the best rushers in football. So we'll have to wait and see where he's at, which to me makes the next guy, Jerome Ford, interesting. He's 25 years old. He came onto the scene last year. Well, he's going into his 3rd year, but he didn't do anything his rookie year. He's going in round 10 as well. He's going right after Nick Chubb. Now, this is probably also going to go up a couple rounds if Nick Chubb is on PUP. But if you needed 10 to 12 half PPR points last year, Jerome Ford was your guy. He literally got that for you every single week. It was kind of crazy, actually. So Jerome Ford, he's probably going to be one of the leaders in this backfield, right? At least in September, I'd say. Even when Nick Chubb's back, they're going to use multiple running backs. They've always done that.
He's kind of like we were talking about with the last team, Chase Brown. We don't know if the guy, has proven it or something. Sorry, Jerome Ford has proven it, for the Browns in over 200 carries. So last year, so he that should be a repeat.
44 catches, 9 total touchdowns. Should be a good offense. And again, the other thing is, it's not like you're drafting Jerome Ford and when Nick Chubb's back, Jerome Ford's nothing. Again, even when Nick Chubb was at his peak, Nick Chubb abilities, they were using Kareem Hunt regularly. Look at 2022 and Nick Chubb's snap share: 53, 54, 63, 55, 52, 44. You think of him as like, oh, he's the best running. That's just not how they operate in Cleveland. So he's still going to have value. And I agree. If he stays here, I love it. Even if he moves up a couple rounds and Nick Chubb is out, I still like Jerome Ford, as an RB 3/4 on my bench or something, first guy off my bench. And for that reason, we were just talking about with the whole Cleveland uses multiple running backs, D'Onta Foreman's on this team. And D'Onta Foreman, no one's going to be surprised that D'Onta Foreman has a 4-week stretch where he's a top 12 running back, because that's what he's done when he took over for Derrick Henry in 2021, in 2022 when CMC got traded, and then last year when Khalil Herbert got hurt, D'Onta Foreman came in and was like a top 12 running back for 3 weeks. So no one's going to be surprised. I kind of like taking a shot on D'Onta Foreman at the end. He's going around 17. So he's literally like maybe your last pick. I kind of like it just for if Nick Chubb's not ready, but also just kind of insurance. If one of them get hurt, they're going to use multiple running backs. It just takes one of them. Even though he's third on the depth chart, it takes one of them to get hurt. So are you kind of there with D'Onta Foreman as well? It's like a nice little...
Yeah, I agree. Here's a guy who's he's definitely, he definitely could carry the load, for a number of weeks and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, stash him on your bench if your last pick. The receivers are a little interesting here. I mean, there's two guys to talk about. Amari Cooper, age 30, ADP 47th. He's going around 4 as wide receiver 26, which is a little surprising. The round 4, not so much, but as wide receiver 26. Amari Cooper is like consistently a top 15 wide receiver, year in and year out, at least since 2019. He's just always up there. He's going to get you probably 1,100 yards, 70 to 75 catches, and 7-8 touchdowns. I know people are worried about Deshaun Watson, but real quick, a couple things on Amari Cooper. If you look at the games where he had a competent quarterback, so you see the numbers there. He averaged 12.7 half PPR points per game. He was wide receiver 17. If you take out the games where DTR started, it was DTR, PJ Walker, and Jeff Driscoll. There were 6 games there. If you take those 6 out and you look at the Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson games, Amari Cooper was like a top 5 wide receiver in those games. It was crazy how good he was. He was horrendous in those other games. Like, absolutely, because they can, DTR was not ready to be a starting quarterback. So, and then another thing, I know people are worried about Deshaun Watson, but there's been about 11 games that Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper have played together. And he's basically on pace for like his career numbers: 80 catches, 1,100 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And that's with Deshaun Watson being terrible. What if Deshaun Watson's average to above average, right? Then we're talking about even bigger Amari Cooper. So I like Amari Cooper as like, again, wide receiver 26. We'll see kind of where, if you're there, Dad, I'm not sure if you agree with that. I know you're not the biggest Amari Cooper guy, but...
I wasn't, but I mean, here's another guy I know he's a little older. He's in his contract year, so so
he's 30. 30's fine. Just turned. Oh, he turns 31 tomorrow. Actually,
he doesn't. Okay, yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he's had an injury problem. He's played on 3 teams now, so. As long as there is, like you said, you pointed it out about having a quarterback getting the ball to him, and those games where he's the Browns' number 1 receiver. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, none. And again, like he's just look at his stats, man. He's consistent. I said he was going to be 31. I was wrong. He's already 30. He's going to be 30 this year. Which for wide receivers, there's plenty of wide receivers that produce age 30. So I think it's kind of again, it's round 4. Receivers are being pushed up, but man, if I start off my draft with a running back and 3 wide receivers, and Amari Cooper is my wide receiver 3, like I've died and gone to heaven. Like that's amazing. Even if he's my wide receiver 2, I'm okay with that. And I know slightly inflated because he had like a 50-point game last year. Slightly inflated there, but that balances out with the terrible games he had with DTR and Jeff Driscoll. We do have to talk a little bit about Jerry Jeudy, I guess. 25 years old, 135th ADP, 135th overall. That translates to round 12 as wide receiver 58. You see the numbers there. He actually had a decent year in 2022, which I think is easy to forget about. He was 11.5 points per game, and it was wide receiver 20 in points per game in 2022. And then he's been a disappointment because we thought maybe the best wide receiver in the draft class hasn't lived up to it. Gets traded to Cleveland, and then they pay him, which shows you what they feel about him. They pay him. So, Dad, I know he's been a huge disappointment. He's wrecked a lot of teams, but now you're getting him in round 12. Are you fine with throwing a dart at him and seeing maybe Deshaun Watson gets back to throwing for over 4,000 yards? And if that's true, someone else has to produce on this team.
Yeah, I'm not a Jerry Jeudy fan. We've been kind of waiting for things to happen in Denver and stuff like that. And, I'm not okay with it. So I'd take a pass on Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah. I'm fine with, again, it's round 12. So we just talked about it. That's you're getting deep into your bench now. If most drafts are 16, 17 rounds, you're talking about third, fourth guy on your bench, right? So I'm okay with it because I do think there's still some potential there. I know he hasn't looked great and it's been a disappointment, but again, he did have basically 1,000-yard year and 6 touchdowns in 2022, and he was a top 20 wide receiver. So we've seen something. And now if he does bust, you're not really suffering from it, right? Your team's not losing because of it. So I'm okay with it. And again, something to, I guess, take note of is there was a report that came out with it's going to be Amari Cooper and Cedric Tillman, who was a rookie last year from Tennessee, who actually kind of liked a little bit, but it sounds like it's going to be a Cooper, Tillman, and then Jeudy in the slot. Now, I don't know if that means Judy's off the field in 2 wide receiver sets, or if that's only referring to 3 wide receiver sets. If that's the case, though, I kind of like him more. If he's out there in 2 wide receiver sets and he's in the slot in 3 wide receiver sets, he's going to get a lot of easy targets. So something to note there. And then, Cedric Tillman, again, he's going to be one of those players that's going to be out there every snap potentially if he is the wide receiver 2 de facto. Now, I will say this. Alec Pierce for the Colts last year ran the most routes in the entire NFL, and he had 500 yards receiving. So just because you're out there doesn't necessarily mean you're going to produce. But Elijah Moore, sorry, RIP. There's nothing to talk about. He's the wide receiver 4.
And now it's the second time he's been kicked to the curb then.
Yeah, I mean, he's still on the team, but
yeah.
He had 105 targets last year. He did the least with the most targets. 105 targets last year. He had 640 yards. It was awful. It was awful. Deshaun Watson does seem to like him, though. And then there's David Njoku. He was always kind of a physical freak coming out of college. Former first-round pick. It was a big disappointment. His best year before last year was 639 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then year 7 came along and he decided to break out. He was awesome last year. He averaged 10 half PPR points per game, which was good for tight end 7. But if you look at that stretch he had with Flacco, man, he was awesome. I'm just going to double check what it was. Basically, from week 8 onwards, David Njoku, from week 8 onwards, David Njoku was the tight end 1. That's half the season where he was tight end 1. Averaged 12.9 points per game. So Are we going to get a repeat of that? Because Watson and Njoku haven't clicked yet. That's the big worry people have. Real quick, he's going as tight end 10 in the 8th round. Are you okay with taking Njoku round 8 as your starting tight end?
I think I am. 8th round. Yeah, I'm drafting a tight end. I mean, yeah, I think I'm okay. Just kind of mentally processing it, and I think I'm all right.
Yeah, I mean, it means you get to stack up on other positions, for the first 7 rounds. So, for that reason, you can wait until round 8 and get Njoku. Yeah, is there concern with the lack of production with Deshaun Watson, or do you think it's like we saw what this guy's capable of? We need to get him the ball, type of thing.
Yeah, he didn't even have double-digit targets.
No.
With Deshaun Watson, and he had at least 3 of them with Flacco. So,
yeah. Do you think he's second on the team in targets behind Cooper, or do you think that's Judy?
I could see. He's been there long enough. He's been playing. He should have earned that trust, and have the familiarity with the quarterback and all the other stuff. So, yeah.
I mean, he's definitely on one of those tight ends that could be top 2 in their team. That's for sure. Which is why he's going here. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with, if you want to take your tight end in round 8 or 9 and you grab Njoku, that's good. I mean, the guy was awesome last year, and you're still getting him at a relatively cheap price because, well, one, we're a little bit worried it was an anomaly, right? Like he was year 7 before he actually did a big breakout year. And then 2, Deshaun Watson and the lack of trust there. So I think that's it for the Browns then. Going to be interesting division, Bengals, Browns. Any last words on these Cleveland Browns?
No, there's some good, there's some okay fantasy options there, and, starting with a quarterback, and especially if you get him as quarterback 21, I don't know.
Yeah.
But running backs, Chubb, there's questions to be answered. Amari Cooper, good tight end, Njoku. So,
yeah, there's definitely
always. They got a good coach too, So that's something to think about.
Yeah, it is funny you mentioned that. Like they have all these names that we just talked about. They have one guy going in the first 7 rounds from this team, and it's Amari Cooper. Like you normally just don't see that when we do talk about. Part of it's because Nick Chubb's getting hurt, Nick Chubb injured and stuff like that. But usually you have a couple guys from every team that are in the first 7-8 rounds. We have one in the first 7 here. So, but yeah, we'll be back with the Dallas Cowboys. And we'll be talking about them alphabetically. So we'll catch you guys all in that video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you